Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 13 for Blueprint for Closers. My name is Dominic Ciccarelli with Think Design Architecture. As usual, with my co-host, Rob Nixon from Pre-Rail. What's up, Rob?
How you doing?
Today we have Billy Loesch with us from the Baya Bar franchise. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about not only his franchise and his eating and drinking business, but we'll be talking about negotiating leases and some of the pitfalls and tips to a tenant finding real estate for their business. Before we get started into that, we always like to find out and learn a little bit more about you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Billy, where you're from and kind of how you got to this endeavor?
Yeah, so I born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, Bay Ridge, to be very specific. And from an early age, I always wanted to go into business for myself, be an entrepreneur, right? Entrepreneur got kind of cool like within the last 8 to 10 years. But when you're a kid, you don't really know what that means, right? I just knew I wanted to make a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So my friend and I, at about 6, 7 years old, it was like first or second grade, we started selling these little tchotchke items from Oriental Trading Magazine to kids in school. So we would buy like 100 whatever for a penny each, and we'd sell them for a nickel each or for a dime each.
Very
From
cool.
a profit margin standpoint, the most profitable business I've done to date. Did that for like a year or two at school. Then in high school, we started a company called Brooklyn Home and Store Improvement. Went around Bay Ridge, power washing, painting, doing odds and end jobs like that for businesses and for homes.
Very cool.
Again, did very well doing that at 15 and 16 years old. From there, went to college, Monmouth University, not too far from here, and started a company called Learn Green, Earn Green. And what the purpose of that was to bring recycling programs to businesses and schools that use private sanitation. What a lot of people don't know is private sanitation does not recycle. So if you see a recycling bin in a business, it's a farce, basically. Yeah, we'll get into that later. So I provided recycling bins. I don't know if I've ever told you this.
No.
I provided recycling bins to Zavarian, my high school, for free. We collected all of the recycling for free. And then we brought it to a redemption center and we redeemed all the bottles and cans for money.
Very cool.
And the thought process was it's a no-brainer for the schools. We are, offering recycling. We're picking it up for free. And we're going to give a portion of the proceeds back in the form of a scholarship. So we piloted it at Zavarian and it went very well. But we very quickly realized we were in waste management.
Right.
So my buddy and I, who again, Oriental Trading Magazine, Brooklyn Home and Store Improvement, and now Learn Green, Earn Green, he was getting started in his world. I was getting started on Wall Street. And we decided to leave this business and check it out at a later date in life. Graduated college and went down onto Wall Street. And I was down on Wall Street for about 4 years and change. Got my Series 7, Series 63, and started selling stocks basically on Wall Street. And
What years were we talking?
I graduated college in 2012. So I went down to Wall Street about end of 2012.
So a relatively good market.
Yeah.
You were coming back out of that recession from 2008.
Things were good. And then in 2016, things went bad,
Right.
Especially in oil and gas. So the mixture of oil and gas tanking and just, not having a lot of great luck with the investments I was involved in, I was really, really disheartened. I decided to leave Wall Street in 2016. And that's when I started looking for the next venture.
That's when I think I met you, roughly, or maybe 2018.
Well, we probably met after
It was down on Minthorn
2016.
Street.
Oh, yeah. So it was 2017. 2017. Started looking for different opportunities, and there was an opportunity to bring acai bowls and that whole genre to Brooklyn, which I feel is one of the best markets in the world.
And how'd you find that?
How did I find what?
Acai bowls, yeah.
Well, I had tried it numerous times on the West Coast. There were a few brands that were popping up on the East Coast, mainly in New Jersey and Long Island. but there was nothing in the 5 boroughs. So I'm saying to myself, this brand's having success in New Jersey. This other brand's having success in Long Island. There's all these brands on the West Coast. Why nothing in the 5 boroughs?
Right.
How far ahead was the West Coast? 5 years, 10 years?
If I had to predict, I think they were about 3 to 4 years ahead, 3 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other brands in New Jersey and Long Island were about 3 years ahead of me.
Mm-hmm.
So just started doing a ton of research and development. And I approach any business, but this business specifically, with a kind of a very straightforward, common sense approach.
Mm-hmm.
If we offer a high quality product and it looks nice and it tastes good, we'll probably do pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
So no food and beverage background. Went into the acai bowl business, started Baya Bar. And that was December 28th, 2016. So we're about a week and a half away from 7 years. And fast forward to today, 26 locations open, with another 24 under contract. And we were just ranked #1 acai bowl franchise by Entrepreneur magazine.
Ah, that's great, man.
Unbelievable.
Congratulations.
I not only had the pleasure of meeting you and doing store 1, but
Yes.
I've been involved in every single store since then.
Is that right?
Yeah. And this first space he took in Bay Ridge, where he grew up, I actually knew the tenant that was there prior, and that he made the connection to us. And we opened up the store, and about a month or 2 later, he called me up. He's like, "We're doing another one." So it was exciting from the beginning, seeing something from nothing become something.
It's a cool story, yeah. Are
Yeah.
they all in the boroughs?
So predominantly in the 5 boroughs,
Mhm.
we have Louisiana, Utah, and now going into 2024, we have a lot of locations that are starting to come up outside of New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Florida, Georgia. We have some interest, Wisconsin. So it's now we're really starting to build momentum, but predominantly in New York right now.
Tell us about Baya Bar specifically now, right? So obviously it's acai bowls, but I think you guys do a lot more than that.
Yeah.
And talk to me about, as time marches on and maybe trends change a little bit, what do you classify Baya Bar as, and what do you see it as the future?
That's a great question. So from a product standpoint, we sell acai bowls, coconut bowls, and pitaya bowls. And for those who don't know, it's the acai bowl is an acai base. It's almost like a thick sorbet,
Mm-hmm.
and it comes with all fresh fruits and toppings on top. Along with the bowls, we do smoothies, protein shakes, fresh juices, cold pressed juices, avocado toast, and now we're launching a full coffee line.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So this is one of the things that we're transitioning to.
And you're doing juicing.
Yes. Fresh juicing and cold pressed.
Yeah. I've tried a bunch of them.
Don't you have oatmeal too?
We do have oatmeal. Yeah. So we have some more grab and go style items like the oatmeals and the granola bars and things like that. But the main crux of our products are the bowls, the smoothies, and the juices. And it's funny, the question that a lot of people ask us is, aren't you worried that acai bowls are a trend? And my response is always this: smoothies and juices, smoothie shops and juice bars have been around predominantly since the 60s and 70s. Great business model, plenty of locations for various brands. Acai bowls, coconut bowls, pitaya bowls, and all of the other bowls that come onto the menu are basically just a complementary enhancement to that already successful business model.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're actually offering a bona fide meal replacement. So people that would maybe have a protein shake after the gym or a smoothie for breakfast, now they're coming in for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and eating these bowls. So we've actually taken an already existing proven business model and just enhanced it and widened the audience. I obviously wasn't the pioneer of that, but that's why I believed in the model from day one. And now we're trying to adapt it and grow it by bringing in coffee and bringing in some of that cafe style items.
So going from way back, right? So I'm curious how the franchise has evolved and how it even became, how you decided to start franchising. But going way back, right? You're coming off of Wall Street. You like this concept. Where do you go and where do you start? How do you find acai suppliers? Where do you find your granola? All these things. How does that work?
It's funny, man. I don't know if I'm smart or if I'm just delusional. I haven't figured it out yet. But I just called everybody that I could think of. I went into businesses that I had, relationships with the owners, friends, or, family member of a friend. And I just asked a ton of questions, and I used this magical thing. I don't know if you've heard of it, Google. And I just looked up, frozen fruit suppliers, granola suppliers, and I just started calling everybody. And then what I took from Wall Street was, well, I always had the gift of gab, but I took the negotiation skills from Wall Street.
And then don't give up.
And I brought that into food and beverage, where these guys are like, oh my God, this kid's beating me up over.
Right.
So we negotiated really good deals. And it was really just vetting out a lot of people. And then as you grow and you scale, as you know, you adapt and you get rid of certain people that aren't working. You bring in certain people that are better. But we've really, it was just trial and error, calling and just trying out different vendors and just seeing what worked. And then doing just the old school flavor test, just trying different products and just saying, what tastes better, what looks better. And then bringing a product that I thought was really well to the market, testing it out with family and friends. And then once they confirmed that 95% of what I thought was real, then we opened.
Yeah. There's no question it's a huge demographic. I mean, everyone leaving the gym is coming by, hitting the smoothies. Every kid after school is taking the train to the closest Baya Bar, and they're grabbing these bowls. So I think you want to hit the breakfast, lunch, and dinner crowds. Obviously, maximize your sales. But I think that this business isn't catering to just one. It's not just for kids, or it's not just for adults. It's not just for guys into fitness. It's a full-fledged restaurant providing food on a takeout basis, right?
Right.
So I think you definitely hit on the head with respect to meeting everyone's needs.
Right. So this was 2017 first location.
Well, all of the R&D started in 2016.
Okay.
I would say summer of 2016.
Okay.
I left Wall Street April, May of 2016. So really started ramping up the research and development and the build out in the summer of 2016, and then opened the first store December 28th. So at the very end of 2016, and then by the end of 2017, we had opened 2 more locations. So we had 3 within the first 12 months.
And then from there, how many more corporate stores did you open before deciding of franchising?
We got up to about 5 or 6 corporate locations, and then decided, let's start franchising.
Was that always the plan, or that was the only way to scale?
Any business I get into, I do the $1 billion test. It's like Bronx Tale, the Mario test. This is the $1 billion test. So I said to myself, I might not hit it, but what is the pathway to $1 billion? I think you could figure out in any business. And if there's a business that doesn't have that answer, then it's not a business I'm personally interested in. So in this business, it was 2 ways: franchising and blowing it out of the water like McDonald's, right? Everyone uses McDonald's as the comparison. Or going the private side like a Starbucks or a Chipotle and raising a bunch of capital and just, rolling out a ton of corporate locations. I felt that the path of least resistance would be franchising. Lower risk, lower reward on a store-by-store basis, but scaling it to the size that I wanted to scale it to much faster. So that was always the plan from day one. And then, once there was proof of concept and we had 3 locations that were doing really well, then it was, okay, let's really pursue this. Right. And then we started, getting a lot of people reaching out too.
So those, what was it, 5 corporate stores basically you got it to?
Yeah, I believe it was 5. I'm pretty sure it was 5.
So did you, bootstrap it and come up with the capital yourself? Did you raise money at that time?
I'm proud to say that 7 years into this thing, a week and a half out from 7 years, we've never taken $1 from any outsiders. We've bootstrapped it from day one. And after year 1, the 3 locations really funded everything.
That's super cool, man. Should be super proud of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was
impressive.
I don't think of it lightly because it things went well in the early days. So you kind of don't think about it, but for so many people, that's not the case. So I recognize how lucky we were in the early days that we were able to bootstrap this thing and get it to where it is today.
I design and work with a lot of restaurateurs. And what was super unique about this business was a lot of the expenses to owning a restaurant is the gas line, the hood, Ansel systems, annual boiler fire inspections, all this kind of stuff. Where this business, there's no cooking on premises. I mean, some of the spaces we've designed are smaller than the studio.
Yeah.
And and they're producing the same amount of sales as restaurants do that actually have to have a full gas range cooking menu, cooking on premises. And that's what's super unique about this business compared to other eating and drinking type spots throughout the city.
Right.
Yeah, from a real estate standpoint, small square footage, our number one store in the company is 450, 500 square foot store.
Where is that?
I won't say.
Okay.
It's in the New York market, but small location, and just like Dom just said, from a landlord perspective, they love when we make an offer on a space because there's no cooking, there's
Absolutely.
no grease, there's
Makes
no
so
raw
much sense. Yep.
food.
Yep.
The risk for bugs and rodents and things like that is
Gas leaks.
almost non-existent.
Yeah.
Fires non-existent. Health department, they try to find things wrong with our places. It's very hard for them to find something wrong. And we really are a phenomenal amenity to any building that we go to or any block. So from a real estate standpoint, we're getting small square foot spaces, and landlords are really loving everything that we're doing.
What's also great about the small footprint is he doesn't need his own dedicated space. So he can be an accessory to a gym, right? He could be the juice spot in the gym in like a plug and play scenario.
Right.
He could be in a supermarket, right? Just carve out a little 400 square foot area for him, and that's the juice bar area.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of diversity in how you can actually plug the business in. Almost like you see Starbucks going into, and Dunkin' Donuts going into supermarkets. You can start plugging Baya Bars into supermarkets.
Correct.
So you go the franchising route, right? So now, obviously, you're looking to, I imagine, grow as fast as you can within reason, right? So, what do you look for in a franchisee? What does it take to become one?
There's no perfect franchisee. What I've learned is every human being that I've come in contact with within Baya Bar's ecosystem or not is their own individual person. You have to really get to know what makes somebody tick. So when a franchisee comes on board, I like to know what their vision of our relationship of franchisor-franchisee is in their mind. Are they looking to leave their 9-to-5 that they hate, and they just want to be in a store, old school, work 5-6 days a week in this location, and it's their life? Do they really believe in the concept, and they want to invest, $1 million, and they want to open up 4, 5, 6 locations, and they want this as an extra revenue stream? Or are they a big real estate holder and they want to plug Baya Bars into 26 shopping centers? So everybody's different. However, what I've seen over the course of 7 years is the best franchisees we have are owner operators, people who are very, very hands-on with the business.
They care about it.
Yes. I think one of the things that we've lost in the United States is that hands-on customer service hospitality. And
it's the pride.
Correct. It's also, and I'll say this, as playing devil's advocate, we have corporate locations. Our staff is trained to a high standard, but they still don't own the store. They don't have the right to give away products or give special discounts like an owner does. So they don't have the right to do that, and that could get very murky if you give them the right to do that. But when you do little things like that, when it's appropriate, that's how you build a loyal customer base. So our stores that have owner operators really outperform the stores that don't. So we're really looking for franchisees that want to be hands-on.
So it's just so true about how the world, like just how everything has changed. I mean, we were at a breakfast meeting this morning of a mastermind group we have, and so many guys in the room, grew up or just started businesses, 14 hours a day, whatever it took. They, for the most part, a lot of them are looking to exit the businesses. None of the kids want it. Nobody wants to put in that kind of work anymore. And it's just so different. It's really changed.
And all of those business owners really came from, hardworking families, if you want to call it blue collar families or working class people. And they kind of took it to the next level. And it goes back to that cycle, right? Where you have the person who kind of takes it to the next level, then the second generation kind of skates, and then the next generation kind of loses all the money, and then it has to start again, where, okay, now you have that hunger in your body, your stomach again to kind of earn.
Yeah.
So it's really hard. And I think about this all the time with my kids. Like, how do I make them as motivated as I was motivated to do something when they didn't have the struggles that I had, right? Like, you knew at a young age, I want to be rich, make a lot of money, right? You said that earlier.
Yeah.
But there were things in your life that happened that gave you that motivation.
Well, and we can go on a tangent on this, and it's probably a conversation for another podcast, another day. But I think the problem with kids today is that people aren't understanding what they like, right? Like for the longest time, it was loyalty to family, loyalty to country, hard work. And now we're in this weird place where that doesn't really exist anymore. So the big problem is kids are not doing what they want to do. Their parents are not letting them do what they want to do. And they're just rejecting it. And I don't think it's a kid problem. I think it's a parent problem.
I agree.
It's so true. I mean, you had the post-war, right? And there was a trend that happened for 40 years plus. And then most of those people wanted their kids to go to college because that was the right thing to do. I think in many cases, college is not valuable. We've gotten away from so many things that are so valuable, like trades. I mean, nobody wants to. I mean, you're spot on with that. I encourage friends that I have kids that, and I probably said this to you before. Like there are tests you could take, Myers-Briggs, certain things to like figure out what kids might be good at.
Mm-hmm.
So you can maybe start steering them through that or if nothing else, to figure out what they don't want to do, so you can get there. Because otherwise, you get all these people that are going to college at an undergrad school that is okay, right? And they have no idea what they're doing.
It was frowned upon to be, an electrician or plumber. Like, no, go to school.
That's where they make all the money.
Doctor.
They're the ones that make the money.
Those are the guys crushing it right now. You know how many doctors I know that are getting into the construction business?
Well,
they're buying real estate.
Yeah, I mean, I like you just said that at the mastermind meeting, there's people that are getting out of the business. That's my next thing. In conjunction with Baya Bar or post Baya Bar, it's going to be buying businesses like that.
I totally agree. Great model.
That, there's a lot of these guys, they're just going to close because no one's taking over the business. And a lot of these guys, like I think of my father, smart guy, grew up, was born in the late 50s, grew up in Brooklyn in the 70s, 80s, 90s. These guys don't know how to pull P&Ls and get EBITDA and get valuation reports done and sell a company the correct way. They're just simply saying, hey, I make a couple $100,000 a year. Give me 2 times that and I'll walk away. Right. So I think there's going to be a lot of real good deals to be made. And I think if guys like us put together groups with ops guys, we can bring multiple businesses under one umbrella and absolutely crush it.
Yeah, totally agree. And a big part of that, right, is, I mean, and again, we're going off tangent here, but there's 2 ways to grow a business. There's a grow business to ultimately sell or exit at some point, right? And there's running a business to support your lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Almost always, not almost always, but in many cases, it's the second. And those businesses are not at all positioned to sell.
Well, I'm glad he just said that, because when we were talking about the kid thing, a conversation I constantly have with employees, there's a lot of employees company-wide at Baya Bar, over 150 probably. And so many times these employees, they're younger kids, not all the time, they'll ask me for advice. And I always say to them, well, what do you want? Do you want to do something you really like, or do you want to make a lot of money?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're starting out, they might not align. For me, I want to make a lot of money right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'll shovel horse shit if you're going to pay me the right number. A lot of kids don't want to do that. They want to have both.
Yeah.
And what I'm telling them is, you either, to start, pick something that aligns with what you need today to fulfill today. And then the rest will kind of follow. Sometimes you do something you don't like, but you make enough money that you can then have the freedom to make a decision.
Right.
Or you don't care about money and you're accepting of that and you follow a passion, and then you make money because you're following your passion.
I read a thing years ago and it always stuck with me. 20s are for learning, 30s are for earning. And I'm just such a believer in that.
Yeah.
Take your 20s to just work, figure it out. Like,
learn everything. I'm going to make I have a daughter, we all have kids, right? Our kids are young. I'm going to make my daughter intern for companies for free.
Same.
For at least 6 years post college, if she even goes to college.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to say, and we could watch this in 15 years, go work for this guy or this woman for free.
Learn, absorb.
Because if you're not taking anything from them monetarily, they're probably going to give you a shot. Oh, like it's a no-brainer for me.
Mm-hmm.
This kid is super loyal, wants to work hard, and is not asking for anything.
Yeah.
What is that going to turn into?
Yeah.
We all own businesses. I know today, if that happens to me, in 7 years and 150 employees, I've not had one ever say to me, can I come work for you for free 5 days a week? It hasn't happened.
Mm-hmm.
I've had about 5 over the years. I have 150-ish employees company wide today, but thinking about over 7 years, probably 4 or 5x that, if not more. I've had about 5 or 6 say, hey, can I make some extra money and help you with anything? And those people hold a higher regard in my mind, you know?
Yeah. Another thing I like to also focus on with my kids is there was so much pressure on so many families. You're going to be a lawyer. You're going to be a doctor. You're going to be a politician. But you know what? Happiness is completely ignored in the whole equation, right? So I'm taking almost a little bit more of a passive approach where, listen, you can be anything you want to be, right? I'm not putting that pressure on you, but I need you to be happy. And if I could teach my children to find happiness within and maybe not through something else or someone else, I think I was successful. Just be happy in life. That's what I think this world's missing. Everyone's popping a pill and everyone's doing this. And listen, be happy. But with that said, whatever life you choose, whatever career you choose, your life will match it.
Mm-hmm.
So don't take the job at McDonald's and want to vacation to South of France every year. Right? So it's a delicate balance. What life do you want to live compared to the career you want to have?
And I'll say something because a lot of people don't say what I'm about to say. When you do the vacation in the South of France a few times, you also realize that kind of fucking doesn't matter either. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when you get to that on the other side of it, where you're like, yeah, I kind of rather just have a relaxed 345 days out of the year.
Right.
And not do the 20 days of vacations.
Right. Know your kid, or the kid needs to know himself.
Correct.
What they want.
Correct.
Right. So that's why I'm happy doing anything.
What did you
but
want to be?
Make sure your lifestyle is going to be what you want to be. Listen, I always enjoyed art.
Okay.
I always enjoyed playing ice hockey.
Okay.
I kind of got lucky where I was able to pursue my art and find a business that made money. Right. I'm not a starving artist. I can draw a pretty building, so I'm drawing and I have a business out of it. But listen, the heavy push in my family was to be a fireman and a cop. You know, I come from a huge family of firemen and cops, like us here at the table, and they made me take all those tests, and I took them. And you know what? I was called 3 times for the fire department. I told them 3 times no. Very difficult decision, especially the last time. But sometimes you have to just, you know,
see, my dad
make
was
some
a
hard
retired
decisions.
cop though, but never wanted me to go that route at all.
Yeah.
Encouraged me to do the dead opposite.
Right.
It's funny. My father is a retired cop also. Wanted me to go that route. Said fireman's the better job, actually.
Fireman's definitely the better job.
What did you want to be when you were younger?
For the most part, I always wanted to own my own business. I started my first business when I was 11. Like you, I actually had a landscaping business. I did like 15 lawns in the neighborhood. Then I did a business called Water Boys, which we basically did pressure washing.
That's great.
And painting.
That's what we were doing with
like 15.
That's so funny.
And that, so I wanted to, at one point I really wanted to own car washes. For some reason, that's just something I wanted to do. My mom wanted me to go like kind of down Wall Street, right? And so I did want to do that for a time. And I actually always loved real estate. Just didn't really know, you know, where to go that route, because that's a good example of a profession. They don't really teach you how to be one, or it's not really talked about, right? There's so many things that there's no emphasis on it in school. They don't teach you how to use money. There's no financial literacy. There's no how to balance a checkbook.
Mm-hmm.
The whole education system is broken in so many ways, in my opinion. But getting back to Baya, right? So now
I wanted to be an architect, by the way.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you? Okay.
An interior designer and architect.
Okay.
Listen, you create the you create the look of Baya.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
So do you put any requirements in place for franchisees? Like, do they have to open a certain amount in any certain time, that kind of thing? I know that exists.
Well, now that we're getting to the size that we're at now, outside of the New York market, we're not really taking less than 3 units.
Okay.
Depending on the location.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the further out we go, the bigger the requirement.
And if you want to be a franchisee, do you get a territory? How does that work?
Yeah, so you have a protected territory in and around the location.
Okay.
And then typically what we do as a gesture of good faith is a right of first refusal on 1 or 2 other territories that they're interested in for growth outside of the 2 or 3 that they commit to.
Mm-hmm.
But now that we're at this size and we're going into 2024 with a lot of stores slated to come, now we're only doing multi-units predominantly, unless it's something really unique.
So why should I want to become a franchisee? You know, what do you think that ultimately Baya offers versus other franchises? Because I go to the franchise convention every year, and I haven't, aside from maybe this year, I've seen some cooler concepts, but I think that you have a really great model, and I think it offers. I think it's approachable. I think it's affordable in comparison to some of the others. But I'd love to hear your side of it.
Number one, low cost investment. You really can't get into food and beverage for less than 250,000. Very unlikely. Most of my competitors are in the 3, 4, 500K range. We are opening up stores anywhere, all in cost, franchise fee, build out costs, stocking the store, marketing, anywhere from 175 to 2.25.
Build out time is typically what?
Build out times, if things go well, 2 to 3 months.
Which I can speak as somebody who does a lot of hospitality leasing. Food is usually minimum 6 to 12 months.
Takes you 3 months just to order the equipment.
Right.
Correct.
Minimum 6 to 12 months. So that's awesome.
So we're doing a lot of fun stuff in regards to our design, our build outs. When we negotiate leases and I bring Dom on board, I'm willing to put a little money up front to have the places measured correctly. We pull ACP 5s immediately. It's actually a requirement from the landlord from us. You need to give us an ACP 5 within 10 days of signing the lease.
For those who don't know, that's what?
That's the asbestos report.
Right.
So the reason he does this, and he's one of the only guys I know to do it, and again, maybe it takes 30 stores to get there and get beat up a little bit, is what if you take over that space? And there's language in the lease which protects you. What if you take over the lease? Now there's time restraints to open, right? And you test, because New York City requires you test for asbestos before you get a building permit. And what if it's positive for asbestos? It creates another whole level of complications. Well, who's responsible to abate it? What about the time to abate it? It puts a complete pause in the project. So it's easy to cut through the red tape. Provide me a clean report first, then I'll get started.
Right.
Okay. So you do that.
Yeah. So what we're doing is you have to give us an ACP 5 within 10 days of signing, or else our lease commencement date keeps getting pushed back. So typically with our leases, I'm negotiating anywhere from 4 to 6 months of rent abatement, ACP 5 within 10 days of signing, and then TI money. Depending on the size of the space and the scope of work, we're negotiating. I mean, it ranges anywhere from, it could be 25,000. We've had offers of over 100,000 in TI money, tenant improvement money, right? For anyone who's listening. But the ACP 5, aside from if there's asbestos, who's fixing it, we can miss grand opening deadlines. We want to open for the spring and summer. So even if they pay for everything, it might hurt our grand opening. But even if there's no asbestos, just to pull that report and then wait for the lab results, it delays us anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. So it's an extra way to save our franchisees time and money and get those stores open quickly.
And if it comes back positive, day one, you may just want to pass.
Correct.
I've seen
Correct.
remediation projects that
yeah.
cost
$100,000.
if not more.
Right.
I've seen some horror stories.
Right.
So that's great.
And we do all the layouts and designs in-house. So we'll measure the space out and do a rough design. And then we send it over to Dom, and then he'll plug it all in and make it look nice. And then we'll fire that off to the landlord and get approval, and we get rocking and rolling fairly quickly.
Bill, when you're looking for new locations, right? Obviously you're dealing with a lot of different landlords, a lot of different types of real estate agents or brokers. How do you first identify an area based on a demographic study, and then you say, okay, you reach out to a local agent in that area and say, okay, this is what I'm looking for, and then they come back to you, or right, like if you wake up tomorrow and say I want to open up another store, like how are you choosing the location?
And going a step further than that, right? Because you mentioned earlier franchisee-franchisor relationship. What does that look like? I buy a territory. Who's doing it? Who's responsible for what? I think that's interesting.
So I'm extremely hands-on. Number one, my energy level. Number two, I want to be. I like it. I really do enjoy what I do. Last Friday, I went and spent the entire day in Queens with a prospective franchisee. It was the first time we ever met in person. We had talked on the phone a few times. And at the end of the day, we found a location, submitted an LOI, and he turned to me and he said, "Do you do this with every franchisee?" And I'm like, kind of, yeah. I said, not all the time. I think you're a phenomenal potential franchisee, and I don't personally know the Queens market. So I wanted to get my own feel for it. But so I kind of told him like, not all the time, but I do. But really in reflecting on that answer, I really am so hands-on with every location. So where do we start? Number one, we look at demographics. What we found, and not to give too much of our secret sauce, is certain population density results in good stores. Post COVID, we're doing about 30% delivery. So yeah. So highly, high density of population is always going to be a plus. I like to look at defined borders to see what's on the sides of us and what's above and below us on the map, what makes a neighborhood. And then last but not least is flow. So I'll tell you a quick funny story. When I built my house, my uncle came over and he looks and acts like Vince Vaughn. He's hysterical. And I gave him the whole layout of the house and he started yelling, "No flow. There's no flow here." I'm like, "What do you mean there's no flow?" He goes, "You can't walk from the kitchen to the sunroom. You have to go around the island. There's no flow." So I eliminated it, and that for some reason stuck with me. So whenever I look at a location, I look at the flow of traffic. And we went down to Atlanta. We looked at a site. And what does every realtor do? They send you this little prospectus, no offense, with the demographics of the area, the income, the amount of people, how many cars drive by per day. But they don't talk about the flow. So we're at this location, and it's in Atlanta, Georgia, right across from Georgia Tech University. And we're on Spring is the avenue. And we're between 9th and 10th Street. And there's this brand new building that just went up, and the demographics are through the roof. It's unbelievable demographics. 10th Street has an overpass that goes from this side of the highway into Georgia Tech's campus. And there's tons of cars. So I walk down from Spring to the next avenue. It's called Williams. And I look to the right and I see the overpass, and I look to the left, and 4 or 5 blocks away, I see another overpass. And I'm like, what's that? So the franchisee I was with didn't know. She's like, "Oh, I think there's another overpass over there. Let's go check it out." We go 4 blocks to 5th Street. There's another overpass that goes into the campus, loaded with people walking. Why? Why there's so many people here on 5th Street, but not on 10th Street, 5 blocks away? And it was because what I figured out is on 10th Street, there was an on-ramp on one side of the highway, and there was an off-ramp on one side of the highway. So you have people driving 60, 70 miles an hour on and off of an interstate. Well, you know who doesn't want to walk across cars going 60 miles an hour? 17 and 18-year-old kids. They want to take a nice leisurely walk or a bike ride on the overpass that has no cars. Mm-hmm. So I realized very quickly all of the flow was on 5th. And lo and behold, there was Starbucks and there was Buffalo Wild Wings and everybody. So from a demographic standpoint, identical. Couldn't be further apart in terms of flow.
Right.
I mean, it's so true. I mean, AM, PM traffic. I mean, there's so many things that brokers don't even know.
Just because the space is the closest to the campus doesn't mean it's the right spot.
Right.
So what's the relationship like now? So a location's found, you help them negotiate a lease. What is it? I mean, they basically buy all their materials, and you guys buy all the supplies and everything from the same place, and you take a percentage of whatever the business does, and you assist with marketing.
Correct. So we typically will have our guys do the build out. So our franchisees, what I like to tell all of them is we will hold your hand every step of the way. We will basically almost do everything for you, unless there's certain things that you have a particular area of expertise in. If your brother owns a kitchen supply shop, we of course can get the equipment from him, right? But by and large, they want to use our people because there's no mistakes made. We've done it so many times. Once the store's open, we help them with hiring. We do all of the training with them. We do corporate back-end training and in-store hands-on training. We typically will take their key people and train them in an existing Baya Bar. And then when we open, we go there for a kind of like a 2-3 day period to make sure that the store's set up correct. Mm-hmm. Then we do it's usually a 2-day training. Then that flows into a soft opening, and then that goes right into the grand opening. Mm-hmm. And we handle all of the marketing. We're with them on the grand opening day. And then beyond that, we're their support system with any questions, comments, concerns, troubleshooting issues. You know, it's a brick and mortar business, so there's always problems. Mm-hmm. And we're there every step of the way forever.
for a franchisee, so the leases with them, is there any connection back to corporate?
No. So we don't, we've had a few times where landlords want us to go on the corporate guarantee,
Right.
and we sometimes will consider doing it for a short period of time.
Right.
So if the good guy clause is like 12 months, we'll go on as a co-guarantor for those 12 months, and then we'll come off.
Okay. What other negotiating tips would you recommend for both the landlord and the tenant for, when a restaurateur or a business wants to come into the space? Like, what are the top 5 things, I guess, are the repeat conversations you end up having, and what are the issues?
Well, I think a lot of tenants and landlords are penny wise and dollar foolish.
Yeah.
And it's a deal killer. I have a deal right now, the deal in Queens that we put an LOI on Friday. They don't want to pay the brokers their commission. So
Who's the landlord?
The landlord. So the brokers are huge brokerage firm from Manhattan that brought us the store, and they're like, yeah, our firm won't even accept those deals, those terms. So what always comes up? Build out. From just giving blanketed advice to both tenant and landlord, there's certain things that as the tenant, we don't take with us if we leave, whether the store doesn't do well in that location or at the end of 10 years, you decide not to renew us. We're putting all this money into the location, and I use high quality products. I use porcelain tile. We do all brand new electric and plumbing. We're typically upgrading the electric in the space. There's one thing that's always a problem, and it's HVAC. So a lot of landlords don't want to spend the money to install the HVAC, or they want to give you the language in the lease that they like to put is good working order. It's like pumping testosterone into a corpse. It could be in good working order day 1, but it's going to break in month 4. And now, depending on where we are, especially in New York, to replace that HVAC unit, you have to bring in a crane, you have to get an engineer, an architect involved.
Yeah.
It's way too expensive. So I think landlords need to be a little more reasonable with certain things like that. I also know the back end calculations of if you get a higher rent, you're getting a higher return on your money from a valuation standpoint on your property. So we as a tenant are willing to pay the extra $500 or $1,000 a month, and we know that $1,000 a month is $12,000 a year on a 5 or a 6 cap. That's $200,000 in value to your building when you cash out refi in a year. So give us $25,000 in build out money,
right?
And we'll pay higher rent.
Yeah. What this comes down to, and it's a plug for myself and it's a plug for you, but the reality is you should be using a good broker. You should be using a good attorney. And if you want to open an acai shop, you probably shouldn't do it yourself. You probably should consider buying a franchise because you have the systems. You're going to catch things that maybe that experience is really the only thing that can get you there.
Correct.
I mean, the HVAC thing, there's so many things that in leases that I see that are missed, that are horrible. I mean, I just saw someone sign a full 10-year personal guarantee with absolutely no limits on anything. I mean, so many things that were missed. Yeah. So, there's countless things as far as that goes. So if you're somebody that maybe is interested in exploring a franchise, definitely speak to Billy. 2 last questions that we'd love to know. One, we always find that there's common trends with entrepreneurs. I'm curious, what does your day-to-day look like? As far as obviously craziness with business, but what does that look like? Your habits,
your morning
things you
routine.
do. Yeah.
Well, I always tell my father, I didn't go on the fire department, but I'm still a fireman because I just put fires out all day long. My routine. So, I'm not the best morning person. I'll just be honest with you.
Some people aren't, yeah.
My brain doesn't shut off at night, and I'll continue working late. So I like to, wake up at a reasonable time, and I love to make breakfast for my wife and my daughter and be a part of the morning routine.
That's cool.
Then I immediately go to my office, and what I like to do every week is schedule set office days. Those set days that I'm in the office in front of my computer, I can get so much done. But in meeting with prospective franchisees, looking at locations, traveling around, I know that I can't be in the office 5 days a week. So it's very important that I have those, 1 or 2 days that are set office days.
Same.
Yeah.
Super valuable.
And then again, I think, I don't like to give cookie cutter advice because everyone's a little different. So I started in putting a habit of putting my phone on Do Not Disturb at a certain time at night.
Same, 9 o'clock.
I think that's very important for your relationship with your partner, your kids, so on and so forth,
And your sanity.
and your sanity. I'm a little bit psychotic. I love living in the chaos. So when I have a lot of projects going on, like right now we have a bunch of stores being built out and all new leases being signed, I'll typically leave the phone on, God forbid. But the biggest piece of advice I can give anyone who's starting a business is hire really, really good people, because I'd rather make 20% less and have 80% less headaches.
Yep. Hire
And-
slow, fire fast.
There you go.
And then last one, we always do this. Any kind of funny, crazy, ironic story, in whether it's with Baya or anything in your life.
Yeah, this is a good one. So I had an idea of kind of what I was going to say coming here, but it just changed in the moment.
Okay.
When I left Wall Street, before I left Wall Street, I'm sorry, I had got crushed. Oil went from $100 a barrel down to $30 a barrel. And every small and mid cap company that we bought into was blown to pieces. My whole book of business was blown to pieces. Personal money gone, family money gone. I was in a bad place. I, against my will, decided to go on a quick trip to clear my head. My buddy convinced me, let's go on a trip, let's go on a trip, let's go on a trip. So we were supposed to go to Austin, Texas. Spend a couple days, clear my head, come home.
Mhm.
We used to fly standby. His best friend was a flight attendant. My cousin's a flight attendant. So we used to always fly standby for like $50. So the night before, you have to always check to make sure the seats don't get booked. So the seats weren't booked, but we checked the weather and it was raining the whole week in Austin. And I turned to him, I'm like, dude, I am not leaving my business and Wall Street for a few days where I need to be there putting out fires and rebuilding my book
To go hang out in the
to go
rain.
hang out in the rain. So literally the night before, we switched the trip to San Diego. We go to San Diego, and aside from me seeing some bowl shops and getting inspiration, the last night in San Diego, we're at this rooftop bar. So San Diego has some of the most breathtaking
I never been. I
sunsets.
heard it's great.
It's
Yeah.
unbelievable. We're at this rooftop bar and there's not a seat available. We have this little four top, and this couple comes over. Hey, can we share this table with you? There's no seats. Yeah, of course. My buddy starts BSing with the wife. I start BSing with the husband. Really humble guy. And I have to reach out to this guy at some point in life. We start talking, and he starts telling me his story. He came from the Netherlands. Everyone from where he's from, bankers. He decided to go into engineering. I go, okay, everyone where I'm from is cops and firemen or street guys. I decided to go in finance. So I can relate. And he comes to America. He manufactures and distributes LED light bulbs. Comes here with $50,000 in inventory. Cannot sell one light bulb. He's here for 7 months. He's down and out. He's going to go home a failure. Just like I'm talking to him, he talks to a guy at a bar. The last few weeks of staying in America, the guy says, why don't you upload everything to this website called Amazon? He goes, who's going to buy light bulbs on Amazon? The guy takes pictures of all of his inventory, uploads it to Amazon. First day he goes live, he sells one light bulb. Second day, one light bulb. Fourth day, 2 light bulbs. 10th day, 5 light bulbs. He turns to me, he says, that was 3 years ago. So I said, how many light bulbs are you selling a day now? Really humble guy. He didn't want to really get it. I go, listen, I really need this. I'm in a weird place right now. I need this. He was on pace to do $32 million in sales for the year.
Wow. Unbelievable.
I shook his hand. I said, thank you. I'm quitting my job when I go home. He's like, please don't do that. We went to return the bikes that we rented. We came back. He was gone. I don't know if he's a real person. I went home, quit Wall Street, started Baya Bar. My wife walked in Baya Bar 3 days later.
Wow.
And the rest is history.
Epic story.
So if it wasn't raining in Austin, Texas,
That's
this
right.
might not be happening right now.
It's a great story.
It's not just, that's a mic drop. Thanks for coming in, man. This was awesome.